She thought she could keep smashing my mailbox without penalty until the day it hit back harder than she ever imagined. It started as a minor annoyance. A few marks, a slight lean, nothing too serious. Just enough harm to make me question if some careless driver had misjudged the path. But by the fourth time, my mailbox had been completely destroyed. I knew this was no accident. This was targeted, and I had a clear suspect. Her name was Karen. She wasn't just any resident. She was the neighbor, the one who thrived on conflict, self-importance, and unnecessary drama. The type who observed the length of your grass with military accuracy, counted the number of vehicles in your driveway like a spy, and filed homeowner association reports like it was her full-time duty. But lately, she had taken her control of suburban fear to a whole new level. For reasons beyond logic, she had fixated on my mailbox. Maybe she saw it as an insult to her perfect little neighborhood. Maybe she hated the style. Or maybe, just maybe, she got some strange joy out of watching me repair it over and over again. But one thing was certain. This wasn't ending. And if she wanted a fight, she had just chosen the wrong rival. Looking back, I should have seen the signs earlier. The first few cases were small enough to ignore a couple of scratches, a minor dent here and there, things that could have been blamed on kids riding their bikes too close or a delivery driver misjudging the street. The mailbox wobbled slightly, but it still stood. Then one morning I stepped outside to grab my newspaper and froze. My mailbox wasn't just damaged, it was gone. The wooden post had been snapped in half, like a stick beneath a boot. The metal box itself lay a few feet away, crushed beyond repair, its door hanging open like a broken lid. Someone had smashed into it with force. Not just a small hit, but a deliberate strike. That was the moment I knew this wasn't random. This was intentional. I looked around for any clues, and that's when I saw them fresh tire marks skidding across the ground, leading right up to where my mailbox had once proudly stood. My stomach tightened. There was no doubt in my mind about who was behind this. If you've ever lived in a suburban neighborhood, you probably know a Karen, that one resident who seems to think they were chosen as the ruler of the block, armed with nothing but an inflated sense of control and a homeowner association rulebook thicker than a manual. Karen was all of that and more. She had a sixth sense for other people's business, capable of spotting an unapproved decoration from 3 houses away. She spent hours watching the neighborhood, peeking through curtains like a detective. And worst of all, she had a personal grudge against anyone who didn't follow her rules. And unfortunately for me, I had unknowingly become her latest target. It started with silent complaints. My trash cans were out 5 minutes too early for collection. I'd receive a notice from the homeowner association. My backyard barbecue went a little past 9. Suddenly, there was an unknown noise complaint. But when none of her usual methods worked on me, she escalated. And now, it seemed she had chosen a new battle. My mailbox. The mailbox. Incidents weren't isolated. Over the next few months, the attacks became more frequent and more severe. First the small dents, then the entire box getting knocked loose, and finally complete destruction. Shattered wood, bent metal, and fresh tire marks. As a signature, it was always after a disagreement. If I ignored one of her homeowner association complaints, my mailbox suffered. If I parked my car in what she believed was the wrong spot, my mailbox suffered. If I so much as glanced in her direction, the wrong way, my mailbox suffered. By the 5th time, I had to replace it. I was beyond angry, but what made it worse? She acted like she had nothing to do with it. Every time she played the innocent neighbor. Oh dear, what a shame. You really should be more careful with your placement. Maybe it's too close to the street, she'd say, her lips curling into a smug little grin. Too close to the street? Give me a break. This was deliberate, and the more I fixed it, the more she seemed to enjoy it. I tried to go through proper channels. I reported the incidents to the homeowner association, but that was useless. Karen practically was the homeowner association. I called the police, but without clear proof, there was little they could do. I even tried setting up a cheap security camera, but somehow, she managed to dodge being caught each time. That's when I realized this was never going to stop. I had 2 choices: keep playing her game or change the rules entirely. Karen, one chilly Saturday morning, stepped outside with a cup of coffee, mentally preparing myself for another fight with my mailbox. But what I saw made my blood run cold. It was completely gone. Not just damaged, missing. All that remained was a broken stump of wood, splinters scattered across the sidewalk like battle debris. The metal box nowhere to be seen. It was as if someone had taken the effort to remove all traces of its existence. And there, standing across the street, was Karen. She wasn't doing anything obvious, just standing on her porch, sipping her tea, watching me, but the smug look on her face said it all. She knew exactly what had happened. That was it. The final straw. I wasn't going to replace another mailbox just for her to destroy it again. I was done playing fair. If she wanted to escalate things, so be it. She had made one huge mistake. She thought she could keep getting away with it. What she didn't realize was that I was about to turn the tables on her in a way she never saw coming. I didn't just want to stop Karen. I wanted to make sure she regretted ever messing with me in the first place. And so, that's when I came up with the perfect plan. A plan that would end this war once and for all. I stood there staring at the empty spot where my mailbox had once stood, my fists clenched so tight, my nails dug into my palms. The cold morning air did nothing to calm the anger burning inside me. I was done. Done replacing mailboxes. Done watching them get destroyed time and time again. Done letting Karen win. I turned my attention toward her house. And there she was, standing on her porch, cup of tea in hand, eyes fixed on me like she was waiting for my reaction. That smug smirk, that look of satisfaction. She wanted me to break. She wanted me to give up, to admit defeat, to accept that she had the power to make my life miserable. But what she didn't realize was that she hadn't won. She had awakened something in me, a determination I hadn't felt in a long time, a drive to fight back, not just with retaliation, but with something so smart, so calculated that she wouldn't even expect it. She thought this was her game. Well, I was about to change the rules entirely. I didn't want just another mailbox. No, that wasn't enough. I needed something stronger, something unbreakable, something that would send a message. So I spent the next few days researching. At first, I looked into reinforced mailboxes, thicker metal, heavier bases, and all kinds of impact-proof designs. But none of them were enough. They were all built to survive accidents, not intentional destruction by a raging suburban menace. Then I stumbled across something interesting. In certain rural areas where mailboxes are constantly at risk of being hit by snowplows, reckless drivers, and even wild animals, homeowners have resorted to extreme solutions. Concrete reinforced posts, steel core structures, mailboxes designed to withstand the impact of a truck without so much as a dent. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just going to build a reinforced mailbox. I was going to create a fortress, a mailbox so unyielding that whoever hit it next would regret every choice that had led them to that moment. I spent hours researching different materials, testing strength ratings, and watching impact simulations. I consulted legal guidelines to make sure my plan was foolproof. I wasn't about to give Karen any chance to turn this against me. By the time I was finished, I had the blueprint for the ultimate mailbox defense system, the Karen-proof fortress mailbox. If I was going to build something that could withstand repeated intentional attacks, I needed to go beyond basic materials, so I made a list. The core steel reinforcement. Instead of a standard wooden post, I got my hands on a solid steel pipe, thick enough that it would take a chainsaw to even scratch it. The foundation, concrete embedding. I wasn't just going to plant this into the ground. I was going to bury it in over 200 pounds of reinforced concrete. The armor, hidden plating, the mailbox itself needed to look normal, but inside, a layer of steel plating welded together like a miniature tank. The trap, impact resistance with zero give. The key was in the rigidity. Any normal impact-resistant structure absorbs shock to prevent damage. But I didn't want shock absorption. I wanted all the force to be redirected back into the attacker. Karen had used her car against my mailbox. She had been careful about it, hitting it in ways that left little evidence. But this time, when she tried again, her vehicle would take the full force of the collision, and it would not end well for her. Now, the real challenge wasn't just building it. It was installing it without Karen noticing. She was nosy. She watched everything. If she saw me constructing something that looked like a battle-hardened, industrial-strength structure, she'd start asking questions, maybe even try to sabotage it before it was finished. So I had to be cautious first. I waited. I acted like I had given up. I let a few days pass without replacing the mailbox. Let her feel like she had won. Let her think I was defeated. Then on a quiet afternoon when she was gone, I started constructing. I dug deep, far deeper than any normal mailbox post should go. A 3-foot hole wide enough to hold the reinforced concrete foundation that would anchor the steel post in place. I poured the concrete in layers, embedding the steel core post as I went. By the time it set, that post was so solid that it would take an industrial vehicle even shift it. Next came the mailbox itself. From the outside, it looked completely ordinary, but inside, it was an armored tank. Steel plating bolted together, layered for impact resistance. The entire thing was designed to redirect energy, meaning any vehicle that hit it wouldn't just stop. It would feel like crashing into a wall at full speed. By the time I was done, the mailbox looked like any other mailbox on the street. But beneath that plain exterior, it was a steel-clad, impact-redirecting, legally indestructible trap. I stepped back and admired my work. It was complete, and now all I had to do was wait. Karen noticed immediately when the mailbox was back. She came outside that very evening, standing on her porch, eyeing it like a hawk. I could feel her analyzing it, trying to figure it out. Was it just another regular mailbox? Or was there something different about this one? She squinted, tilted her head, sipped her tea, and then she did something that told me everything I needed to know. She smirked, as if saying, "You really think that will last?" That's when I knew she was going to hit it. It wasn't a question of if, it was a matter of when. I didn't have to do anything, didn't have to provoke her, didn't have to set any more traps. The moment she saw that mailbox standing firm in its place, she had already decided its fate, or so she thought. I just had to wait for her to strike, and when she did, she would regret it for the rest of her life. The trap was set. The mailbox stood strong, looking like any other on the block, ordinary, unnoticeable. A quick glance wouldn't reveal its true nature. A steel-reinforced, concrete-anchored, impact-redirecting fortress ready for battle. I didn't have to wait long because Karen, she couldn't help herself. For days, I observed. I saw the way she stared at the mailbox, how she paused just a moment too long whenever she walked past. I could sense the gears turning in her head, the way she was trying to decide how, when, and if she was going to attack. But deep down, I knew Karen wasn't the type to let things go, not when she had already claimed victory. In her mind, she had won the battle when she wrecked my previous mailbox. She had won when I didn't immediately replace it, and now she saw it standing there, again, as if mocking her, as if challenging her to try again. So she would. She always did. And that's how I found myself waiting one chilly night, sipping my coffee by the window, knowing that any moment the real show was about to begin. It was almost too perfect. The street was quiet. Most of the neighbors were asleep. A perfect night for someone to make their move unnoticed. And then I heard it. The low rumble of an engine, slow and steady. Not the usual sound of someone coming home late, but someone just out of sight, watching. Her headlights flickered as she rolled up to my house, the beams sweeping across my yard. Then she stopped right in front of my mailbox. My heart pounded, adrenaline surging through me. I could already imagine the look on her face, the sheer smugness she must have felt as she revved her engine ever so slightly. She had done this before. This wasn't new to her. In her mind she had won every time. But this time she was about to lose. There was a brief pause. A moment of hesitation, as if Karen was second-guessing. But then she hit the gas hard. The SUV lunged forward full speed, straight toward the mailbox. And then the sound hit me like a thunderclap. A sickening, metallic crash shattered the quiet street, followed immediately by a horrifyingly loud bang, The impact echoed through the night, breaking the usual silence of suburbia. I didn't even need to look. I already knew what had happened. That steel-reinforced mailbox. It didn't budge. Not an inch. Karen's car, on the other hand, let's just say it didn't end well. There was a deep, gut-wrenching screech as her front bumper practically collapsed like paper. Her hood buckled inward as if it had just smashed into a brick wall at full speed. A hiss. I could only imagine Theshik coursing through Karen's body at that moment. She had expected the mailbox to go down like the last time, to collapse under the force of her hit. Instead, she had just wrecked her own vehicle on a mailbox. My mailbox. I bit down a grin, keeping my expression unreadable as I casually opened my front door and stepped outside. The show wasn't over yet. Karen sat in the driver's seat motionless, her hands gripping the steering wheel in shock. The glow of her dashboard flickered wildly, her car now struggling to stay running after its brutal collision with reality. She turned her head slowly, her face stuck somewhere between horror and rage. I could see it in her eyes. The exact moment realization hit her, she had lost. Not just lost, but spectacularly. I could barely contain my laughter as I strolled casually toward the wreckage, faking concern. "Oh, wow," I said, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. Did you just hit my mailbox?" Karen snapped. You set me up," she screamed, shoving her door open and stumbling out. The rage in her voice was almost hilarious. "This is illegal. You can't. You tricked me." I crossed my arms, raising a brow. "I tricked you." Her face turned an impossible shade of red. "Yes, you made it like this on purpose. I'm calling the police. I'm reporting you to the homeowner association." She gestured wildly at her wrecked SUV, as if expecting me to somehow take responsibility for her own choices. I stepped forward, tilting my head. "Karen, are you saying you deliberately hit my mailbox on purpose?" Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I could see the exact moment when she realized what she had just admitted. Her expression fell, and just like that, her fight was gone. A long, painful silence stretched between us, and then a voice from the darkness. "Holy wow, what happened?" I turned just as another neighbor, Mike, stepped outside in his pajamas, blinking at the scene of destruction in front of him. Karen took a sharp breath, whipping around. "Nothing. Mind your business." But it was too late. Mike wasn't the only one who had come. Outside porch lights flickered on one by one. Up and down the street curious eyes peered from windows. The whole neighborhood was waking up to Karen's ultimate humiliation: a wrecked SUV, a perfectly intact mailbox, and a furious Karen now realizing that she had an audience. I couldn't have planned it better. The police arrived within minutes. Because here's the truth. No matter how Karen tried to twist it, she was the one who had driven into my mailbox. She was the one who had damaged property, and she was the one who now had to explain to the officers why her car was wrapped around a solid steel post. She tried everything: denying, blaming, even throwing a fake tantrum about unfair mailbox designs, but the officers weren't falling for it. In the end, Karen was fined for reckless driving and property damage. Her insurance had to cover her total vehicle because the mailbox was legal and within guidelines. The homeowner association, they finally backed off, realizing Karen was a problem, not a leader. And my mailbox? Still standing, not a single scratch. That was the moment everything shifted. The moment Karen lost her control. The moment the entire neighborhood realized Karen wasn't untouchable. She had tried to play dirty, but she had outplayed herself instead, and I had just won the biggest suburban battle ever fought. The wreckage of Karen's silver SUV still sat there, steam rising from the crushed hood. As the flashing red and blue lights illuminated the entire street, she stood beside her ruined vehicle, arms folded, seething not just with anger, but with pure, unavoidable embarrassment. She had tried to destroy my mailbox. Instead, she had destroyed herself. The best part, she wasn't even ready for what came next. The police officer, a no-nonsense guy with a clipboard and zero tolerance for suburban drama, scratched his head as he took down notes. He glanced from Karen's wrecked vehicle to the perfectly untouched mailbox. "So let me get this straight," he said, flipping through his report. You drove into a mailbox? Karen, red-faced and boiling, crossed her arms tighter. It was a trap. He did this on purpose. Look at it. It's not a normal mailbox. The officer gave me a glance, then back at her, clearly unimpressed. Ma'am, are you telling me you intentionally hit his mailbox? Karen's mouth opened, then closed. She realized too late that she had just confessed to everything. The officer didn't need any more details. He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Well, that's reckless driving, destruction of property, probably endangering others on a residential street, he muttered. You got insurance? Karen made a frustrated noise. Why does that matter? The officer looked up, completely bored. Because your vehicle is towing, ma'am. And considering you just admitted to crashing it into an indestructible mailbox, I'm guessing the insurance claim is going to be complicated. I could barely hold in my laughter. Karen, on the other hand, was losing her mind by now. The entire street was outside in pajamas, bathrobes, slippers. People had gathered like an audience at a free concert, because tonight the great tyrant had fallen. Wait, she actually hit his mailbox? Someone whispered. Full speed, Mike confirmed, shaking his head, grinning like he had just won the lottery. More murmurs spread. The realization hit everyone at once. The unspoken power Karen had held over the neighborhood was gone. This was her downfall. For years, she had bothered people reporting minor violations, enforcing homeowner association rules like a self-appointed queen, making everyone's life difficult with her constant interference and complaints. And now she was the one trapped in her own disaster, and everyone was watching. She wasn't feared anymore. She was a joke, and she knew it. Karen, in all her fragile, unhinged rage, snapped. This is a trap, she shouted, her voice cutting through the night. I'm taking this to the homeowner association. I'm taking this to the city council. This mailbox is a danger to the public, the officer sighed, writing something down. Ma'am, the mailbox is fully approved with regulations. It's on his land, properly installed, and legally reinforced. Nothing illegal here. Karen's eyes widened. But, he knew I would hit it. Silence, then laughter. Someone actually laughed out loud. Probably Mike. And then, like dominoes, others started chuckling too. Because Karen had just admitted to the entire neighborhood that she had intended to destroy my property. She had incriminated herself in front of the police. An officer who looked like he had handled way too many troublemakers in his career, and she had just lost any last bit of power she once held. But the best part, this wasn't even over. Yet after what felt like an eternity of Karen's angry ranting, the police finally handed her a nice, clean ticket for reckless driving. But that wasn't the worst of it, because her vehicle, her precious SUV, it was wrecked as the tow truck arrived and hooked up what remained of her once glorious suburban chariot. Reality must have finally hit her like a second impact. She had no vehicle. She had a ticket. She had a public embarrassment that would never be forgotten. And then came the final hit. The officer folded his arms, staring at her with exhaustion. Ma'am, I'd recommend you file an insurance claim first thing in the morning. Karen flinched. That won't be a problem. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, are you sure about that? And that was the moment her face dropped, because she realized exactly what I mean: insurance fraud. Karen had intentionally crashed into an object that wasn't an accident. And insurance companies, they aren't foolish. If she filed a claim, there would be an investigation. The security footage, the police report, the fact that she literally admitted it to half the neighborhood, they wouldn't pay a penny. Her vehicle was ruined, her money lost. Her entire suburban empire collapsed around her. For the first time in years, Karen wasn't an untouchable tyrant. She was just another troublemaker who had tried to cheat and failed. Over the next few weeks, the consequences came in like a storm. Karen vanished from homeowner association meetings. Nobody took her seriously anymore. How could they? The woman had wrecked her own SUV on a mailbox. The homeowner association distanced itself from her completely. Suddenly, all those ridiculous reports she used to get enforced were ignored. In fact, a few new relaxed rules started appearing. No more pointless fines, no more unnecessary regulations. She had no vehicle for weeks while she struggled to figure out how to deal with insurance denying her claim. She was trapped at home, forced to rely on rides from her husband, who, by the way, looked miserable every time I saw him. Her reputation destroyed. The woman who once had everyone scared now had to endure smirks and knowing looks from every neighbor who had witnessed her incredible failure. And me? I enjoyed every second of it. Because for once, the bully lost. And my mailbox still standing. Weeks passed, then months. Not once did Karen ever touch my mailbox again. She never even looked at it. Every time she walked by, she crossed to the other side of the street, like it was a reminder of her biggest mistake. And in a way, it was a symbol of justice. A reminder that no matter how many times someone tries to control you, there's always a way to turn the tables. All it took was a little bit of planning and some steel reinforced karma. And the best part? Karen never saw it coming. If Karen thought wrecking her own SUV on my fortified mailbox was the worst thing that could happen to her, she had no idea what was coming next. Because the fallout, oh, it was just beginning. She had spent years annoying the neighborhood, filing petty homeowner association complaints, calling the police over nonsense, and generally acting like the self-appointed ruler of the cul-de-sac. But now the entire neighborhood saw her for who she really was. And it wasn't just me she had to worry about anymore. This was the beginning of the end. The morning after they survived every attack, a symbol of justice, standing firm against Karen's tyranny, the Great Mailbox Massacre. Karen must have woken up with one terrible headache, not just from the public embarrassment, not just from the wrecked SUV sitting in her driveway, but from the insurance call she had to make. I had already done my research. Insurance companies don't take kindly to false claims, and when a person intentionally crashes their vehicle into an object that's not covered, Karen, of course, must have thought she could lie her way through it. I imagine the conversation went something like this. Karen? Yes. Hello. I'd like to file a claim someone damaged my car insurance. Oh, what happened? I hit a mailbox on accident. Did the mailbox suddenly jump in front of you? No. I just drove into it on purpose. But it was a trap. Ma'am, are you admitting to intentionally crashing your car? Yeah, that didn't go well. Her claim denied. She tried to argue. She yelled at the insurance agent, tried to play the victim, but the security footage, the police report, and her own confession to half the neighborhood sealed her fate. Not only did she get nothing, but she was marked for reckless driving. That meant her insurance payments doubled, and just like that, Karen was out thousands of dollars. With Karen's influence destroyed, something started changing in the neighborhood. People began standing up to her. For years, she had used the homeowner association against everyone. If your grass was half an inch too long, you got a warning. If your vehicle was parked in the wrong spot, she had it towed. But now, the homeowner association board members who once followed her orders were done playing her games. The neighborhood started pushing back. It started small. Mike, my next door neighbor, deliberately left his trash cans out an extra day just to see if she tried to report it. She did. The homeowner association ignored her. Someone else put up unapproved decorations, something Karen used to have removed immediately. This time, no one cared. A family down the street threw a late-night party, music playing past Karen's self-imposed curfew, and the best part, the homeowner association stopped enforcing her pointless rules. She filed complaint after complaint, only to be completely ignored. Karen had lost her control, and the entire neighborhood knew it. You'd think Karen would have stayed quiet after everything that happened, but no, she doubled down in a desperate attempt to regain her power. She started bothering me directly, standing in her yard, glaring at my house for hours, leaving rude letters in my mailbox which she didn't dare touch again, and trying to spread rumors that I was dangerous and had set her up. I ignored her for the most part, until one night I heard a loud knock on my door. The police. I opened the door fully expecting some new ridiculous complaint from Karen. But this time, they weren't here for me, they were here for her. Apparently, some of the neighbors had enough of her behavior. Someone reported her for harassment. Others had filed complaints about her trespassing. The police had one final warning for her. If she continued, she would face serious consequences. And judging by the look on her shocked face, she finally understood. She wasn't in charge anymore. The police left. Karen never bothered me again. Over the next few weeks, something changed. Karen became silent. The woman who once patrolled the street like a self-proclaimed officer now barely left her home. No more homeowner association complaints. No more passive-aggressive letters. No more staring at my mailbox like it had personally ruined her life, which, in a way, it did. Then one day, a moving truck appeared in her driveway. She was gone within a week. No goodbyes, no excuses, just gone. Rumors spread. Some said she had been forced to leave after losing all her connections in the neighborhood. Others believed she had moved to another town, where she could start over. Somewhere people didn't know about her public disaster, but honestly, didn't care. Karen was gone, and for the first time in years, the neighborhood felt peaceful again. As for my mailbox, it stood strong, never damaged. Again, a silent reminder, a proof that bullies only win if you let them. Karen thought she could control everyone. She thought she was unstoppable. But in the end, she wasn't defeated by force or threats. She was defeated by a steel-reinforced mailbox and her own poor choices. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Karen was gone. Her house, once the center of suburban chaos, stood empty. No more homeowner association threats, no more endless reports, no more control over flower beds and parking spots. The neighborhood breathed again. For years, we had lived under her rules, avoiding her constant reports and fake concerns. But now, things were different. And at the heart of it all, standing untouched and moved by time, by revenge, by anything, was the mailbox. My mailbox, a silent monument to her defeat, a battle-worn champion that had stood against the fury of Karen and triumphed. But the story wasn't over yet, because something unusual started happening, something I never expected. It started small at first. It was just quiet whispers. I heard that mailbox crushed an SUV. No way. That's got to be exaggerated, dude. I saw the wreckage. Karen's car got completely destroyed. Then it spread. A few weeks after Karen's departure, I was outside watering my lawn when a group of teenagers walked by. I noticed them slow down, staring at my mailbox with an odd amount of amazement. One of them, nudging his friend, muttered, "That's the one." I raised an eyebrow. The one? What? They glanced at me, their faces caught between curiosity and disbelief. The one that wrecked that lady's SUV. I blinked. "How do you know about that?" The kid grinned. "Dude, everyone knows." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a mailbox anymore, it was a legend, and the legend was growing over time. The stories transformed like a game of telephone. Each retelling made the mailbox seem even more indestructible than before. "Bro, I heard it's made out of military-grade titanium." "Nah man, my cousin told me it was built with scraps from a nuclear bunker." I read online that it's reinforced with concrete and steel. Okay, that one was actually true. Some guy said it can stop a truck going 80 miles per hour. Unconfirmed, but I wouldn't doubt it. Dude, what if it's like cursed, like some kind of mailbox demon? Alright, now we were getting ridiculous. It wasn't just local talk either. One day, a random YouTuber showed up, camera in hand, filming my mailbox like it was a historical monument. Alright guys, today we're standing in front of the legendary Karen Slayer mailbox, the mailbox that destroyed an entire SUV. Smash that like button if you think it could stop a bulldozer. I watched from my porch, sipping my coffee, wondering how in the world my mailbox had become an internet phenomenon. I thought the hype would fade, but it didn't at first. It was just neighbors and friends making jokes. Then came strangers. Random cars started slowing down in front of my house. Some people even stopped to take photos. One guy, who I swear was a blogger or something, approached me while I was taking out the trash. "Excuse me, sir," he said, adjusting his glasses. "I run a blog on indestructible objects, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to do an interview about your mailbox." I blinked. "My what? Your mailbox?" he said excitedly. "It's famous." That's when I knew this had gone too far. One night around midnight, I was woken up by a loud metallic thud. My first thought, Karen had returned from exile for round 2. I jumped out of bed, threw on a hoodie and ran outside, only to find a group of teenagers standing in front of my mailbox. One of them was clutching his hand in pain. "What the heck is going on?" I demanded. The teens turned pale. One of them, the obvious leader, hesitated before admitting we were, testing the mailbox. I stared at him. He scratched his head. Yeah, you know, the mailbox challenge. Oh, my God. Apparently, some brilliant person on the internet had started a trend daring people to test the mailbox's strength by punching, kicking, or hitting it with objects. Spoiler alert. The mailbox won every single time. The kid holding his hand. He had punched it full force, probably thinking it would bend like a normal mailbox. Instead, he hit solid steel. It took 2 seconds for him to realize he had messed up badly. I sighed. Let me guess you thought you could break it. The teen nodded painfully. Well, I shrugged. At least you're smarter than Karen. She used a whole car at this point. The mailbox was unstoppable. No one dared mess with it. No homeowner association member questioned it. It became the center of the neighborhood, a monument to pettiness, revenge, and ultimate victory. And honestly, I was totally fine with that. Karen had tried to make my life miserable. She had played every dirty trick she could. But in the end, a simple mailbox had defeated her. A mailbox that stood strong while she collapsed. And while I couldn't say for sure if Karen had moved far away to escape the embarrassment, I'd like to think that somewhere out there she still has nightmares about that mailbox. Because even the biggest bullies can be taken down. Sometimes all it takes is a little steel, some concrete, and the right amount of karma. And that, my friends, is the story of how a simple mailbox defeated the worst neighbor in history. But here's the thing, ever since Karen left, the neighborhood has been peaceful. No more homeowner association rules, no more pointless complaints, no more chaos. But recently a new family moved into Karen's old house, and I've noticed the new neighbor watching my mailbox, not in fear, in admiration, but with curiosity. I don't want to assume too much, but if history has taught me anything, if there's another Karen in town, well, let's just say the mailbox is ready.